Hey guys, welcome to the WAG session. I'm your Theater Gen Z himself. So after mentioning how I despise Sony last week, plus every week I have something good to say about Nintendo, I figured that I might as well finally explain why I love Nintendo so much. Well, the glazing begins here. I just love Nintendo so much. For some people, it seems like that I never grew up at all because I keep on playing games that are made for kids. And yeah, I never grew up for video game tastes. But do I really care? No, absolutely not. These games are some of the greatest games of all times. And thankfully, the Legend of Zelda series backs me up for that. Now sure, can Nintendo be a crappy company sometimes? Yes, definitely. But the reason why I love Nintendo so much is not because of their company decisions, it's because of their consoles and games. And that's what I'm mostly going to be talking about for the next little bit. Definitely my favorite console from Nintendo thus far is the Nintendo Switch. It's basically what the Wii U should have been, by default. The reason why I love the Switch so much is because the cool little gimmick. It's either a handheld or it's an actual console on the TV. Now sure, it's less convenient because you can't do both at the same time like the Wii U did, but the Wii U had issues like you couldn't do the gamepad far away from the console, and when you're in console mode, you require the gamepad for basically the entire library of games. The Nintendo Switch fixes all that and makes any kind of setup work. Sure, there might be a couple problems sometimes with games like 1-2 Switch, for example, like how you're going to play that in handheld mode and not tabletop at the least. But that's just one title. Sorry, two. There is everybody 1-2 Switch. But the Nintendo Switch was also basically a new start to Nintendo after the weirdness of the 3DS and Wii U era. But it's not time to diss the 3DS and Wii U era right now. It's time to praise some of its good parts. We got Super Mario Maker out of it, the original Mario Kart 8, we got some pretty damn good Mario Golf out of that too. And also, the Mario parties on 3DS could be worse! And plus, The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds is a great little Zelda title. I'm currently playing through it right now, finally trying to beat a Zelda game for once in my life. And who knows, maybe you'll hear me praise this game in the future. Plus, my personal favorite part about Nintendo is definitely the amount of IPs they have. Sure, sometimes they may not use all these IPs in one generation, but for some generations like the GameCube generation, they used all of them in some given manner. Except for maybe like Kid Icarus, but I think Kid Icarus was like referenced in the trophy section of Melee. But yeah, out of any other video game company, I feel like Nintendo's the only one that actually uses all their IPs the most often. I see Sony do a couple generations of supporting some of their IPs, but then they just get rid of them for the rest of the time. But sometimes they might throw in a port or remaster. And then you got Xbox, all they support is Halo and Forza, even though that they clearly have a lot more IPs out there. That's why I love Nintendo. They actually support multiple IPs and don't give up on them. For a while there, the F-Zero series was dead since F-Zero GX, other than a couple Game Boy Advance titles. Sure, we didn't get a true new game, but they still supported it with F-Zero 99. And plus, now with the most recent Nintendo Direct at the time, they announced a new Tamagotchi Life game. And this is the first time that the Tamagotchi Life series got supported in 10 years. Even though that it was just one generation since the Tamagotchi Life got a new game. Still, whatever. Trying to make a point here. Sure, maybe your favorite Nintendo franchise might not get supported for a generation. It sucks. It really does suck. But the way that the modern day video game releases are, you can probably at least expect a port, and all of your favorite Wii U games prove that, getting the most definitive versions on Nintendo Switch. And my next favorite part about Nintendo is the fun gimmicks for each console. It's usually pretty fresh and new every time Nintendo makes a new console. Compared to any other video game company, when they make a new console, they just make a new console that's more powerful, maybe slightly change the controller a little bit, but other than that, it's just a new damn console. But Nintendo, on the other hand, throws in something new with each console. Even if it's a sequel to a console, they at least try to do something new. Like, for example, some of their first few consoles, the Game & Watches, are basically basically just a gimmick. It basically just introduced what handheld games should be. Little bite-sized things to do when you're on the go. The NES was basically a gimmick. The video game market sort of crashed, and they had to make it seem like it was a toy, thanks to the Rob the Robot add-on and the light gun add-on that came bundled with the system. At least when it first launched. Later on, I don't think Rob came bundled in with the console. I think it was just the light gun because of the Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt cartridge. The Super Nintendo is definitely just a new console, but they did introduce some shoulder buttons out of it, plus they had Mode 7 on there, which is basically just a gimmicky 3D effect. Plus, they had the Super Effects chips for some of their games, like Star Fox and Stunt Race Effects, and then a updated version for Yoshi's Island. The Nintendo 64's main gimmick was 4 players at once. The GameCube's gimmick was the fact that it was a cube, or maybe it was the fact that you could connect their handheld that was also being supported in the same generation. And speaking of which, the Game Boy Advance was basically a portable Super Nintendo. And then back to the original Game Boy was the fact that now handheld consoles were able to swap out with cartridges just like home consoles at the time. The Game Boy Color was basically just a Game Boy in color, but I would just consider that a separate console. It was just, they finally made their own color handheld. That, for example, Sega already pulled off with the Game Gear, but the Game Gear didn't really have this thing called a battery life, so back to home consoles, the Wii was just a gimmick machine thanks to the Wii Remote having a pointer, motion control capabilities, and even better motion control capabilities with the Wii Motion Plus add-on, the Wii Fit balance board, all those random plastic junk that was apparently required but clearly wasn't required, like the Wii Wheel, and the fact that this was technically the first Nintendo console to be backwards compatible with every single home console that Nintendo's ever done. Thanks to Virtual Console with NES, SNES, and N64, the Wii was just straight up backwards compatible with GameCube, plus had its own great original library with the original Wii titles. The Wii U had the gimmick of the gamepad, which is actually pretty cool. It streams 2 screens at once, and they aren't connected like the DS. And speaking of which, the Nintendo DS had 2 screens. The 3DS was like the DS, but it had a 3D effect. Plus, there's tons of different cool models for the 3DS that I absolutely adore, even if it does look like a doorstop. And then, of course, the Nintendo Switch being a hybrid console. And the Nintendo Switch being a hybrid console, plus you're able to detach the controllers from said console to truly make it a hybrid experience if you're playing on the TV, or if you're playing it on a table. The gimmicks are always fun from Nintendo. Even though that the Switch 2 just looks like another Switch, I'm sure that they're gonna pull something out of their ass to make something cool. Hopefully maybe the first Nintendo console to be able to play Mario Paint once again. But with that, that's why I glaze Nintendo all the time. They always have the best video game franchises to me. Good old classic Mario is always a good time. Zelda is a pretty good adventure game. Recently I've been getting into Metroid, thanks to me picking up Metroid Prime 3 recently. Kirby is always a blast, even though that's technically not Nintendo in-house, and it's made by HAL Laboratory. Kirby's a Nintendo exclusive. I would consider it a Nintendo game. Star Fox is always a good time when they support it. Pokemon is always a banger RPG, and I never beat a single Pokemon game to this day, and it's actually quite embarrassing. F-Zero, please, for the love of God, re-release F-Zero GX. It's the greatest F-Zero game of all times. And F-Zero is, to me personally, the greatest racing game of all times. Sure, there's Mario Kart right there, but I'd take F-Zero over Mario Kart any day. Mario Kart is just mostly my multiplayer fun kind of game. Except if I need to 100% it to unlock all the cups, then yeah, I'll sit down and 100% it. I'm cool with that. Kid Icarus is definitely a hard game to get into. Maybe not so with Kid Icarus Uprising, but it's an obscure little Nintendo franchise. I would personally suggest it to you if you haven't played it yet. Someday once I beat the game, I'm going to be talking about Kid Icarus, goddammit. All those random non-Mario Mario games like the Yoshi series of games and Donkey Kong series of games are absolutely great platformers. The newer Donkey Kong Countries is definitely some of the greatest 2D platformers of all times. And god, my favorite Nintendo franchise is the Earthbound franchise. Sure, they don't support it anymore, because Shigesato Itoi doesn't want to do anything with it anymore, other than maybe make some merchandise here and there, maybe add the newest re-release to whatever Nintendo console, but I love Earthbound. Do I wish that Mother 3 will get localized? Yeah, will Mother 3 get localized? No, probably not. I'm just glad that they localized Mother 1. Well, now that I exposed all the reasons why I love Nintendo so much, I might as well show you all what my morning routine looks like. Versus Boo? Nah. Hell no. Perfect. You'll show everyone that you're the greatest Nintendo talker of all times. You'll show those damn Sony fans that you do a better job at sucking up to your favorite video game company. Hey guys, welcome to the WAG session. I'm your CO Theater Gen Z himself.